This is the Groove Guru podcast. My name is Windsor, and my guest today is drummer Jim Macauley. Since turning professional in 2002 with indie band Envy and Other Sins, Jim has worked as a session musician with a variety of acts, including I Blame Coco, Emmy the Great, John J. Presley, Mal Pass, and Mike Marlin, before taking up your current position as drummer for none other than the Stranglers. You've also been featured in Modern Drummer magazine. And Jim, thank you for being here and welcome to the Groove Guru podcast.
It's a pleasure, mate. Nice to see you.
Cool. Likewise. And some context, how we met. I first became aware of you as a drummer through me playing with Hugh Cornwell and obviously referencing a lot of Stranglers material in the process. And part of that was checking out, a lot of footage on YouTube of Hugh's bands and also what the Stranglers and yourself were doing. And I really enjoy seeing you play with the Stranglers, as you rock those songs for people, big time. It's a lot of fun. Cool. And, after seeing you on YouTube doing your thing and then attending a few Strangler shows in person, it was great to connect with you. There was a show you did at Kenny Jones Polo Club in 2019. It was the Golden Stone Years Rockin' Horsepower tribute to Brian Jones. And I saw you walking around the festival ground a bit and came up and said hi. And we had a chat for about half an hour, however long it was. And I really enjoyed that. And it's great to connect again today, man.
That was a strange old gig, wasn't it?
All right. How so? What was weird about that one for you?
I don't know whether, I can't remember whether at what point of the day that you were there, but they're basically like everything was running massively behind because one of the polo ponies had to be shot, which has never happened at a gig before. It was obviously tragic. But then they kind of it was a very well-meaning event and the people running it were absolutely lovely, but they kind of did lose control of what was going on. So I remember before we went, we were hours late going on. And before us was supposed to be Donovan, who'd come in a helicopter. And there was some sort of confusion with him. The way the stage manager communicated to him that he didn't have enough time, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he come on the stage, strummed his guitar for about a minute, never opened his mouth or sang a single word, and then left.
Yeah.
Because he was told he'd run out of time. There was actually plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of shouting going on behind the scenes, but it was a good laugh. I had a lovely time.
Yeah, it was interesting. There's some great acts on as well. I mean, probably the highlight of that day, apart from seeing you guys headline, it was the Water Boys. I thought they did a really awesome full set of Stones.
Well, you
tunes,
can't be a bit of Ralph Salmons is man's a legend.
Yeah, indeed.
And I got to meet Kenny Jones. I mean, Jesus, that's a proper bucket list.
Yes.
Ticked off.
Absolutely, just doing
and
his
he can
thing.
Still play like an absolute bastard as well. He's really good still.
Yeah, that vibe. He's still got it for sure. And I've seen him play there a few times with the Jones Gang and various things, and it's like, wow, yeah, that's a good old rock and roll band for sure, man. and speaking about that, it's great to see you as active as ever with the Stranglers these days. And I think you guys are really sounding fab, especially with new keyboard player, Toby Hounslow.
Toby.
Yeah, he's doing some fantastic work covering Dave Greenfield's amazing keyboard parts. I mean, that's not something that just anyone can do, for sure.
No, he is ridiculous. He's an extremely talented fella. I mean, an odd chap, obviously. He's a keyboard player, they're all on.
Indeed. Yeah. Very cool.
But yeah, you can't knock he's just, I've not played with many people across my entire career that are so consistent in terms of the lack of, he hardly makes any cock-ups. And even when he does, there are only things that we're going to notice and that the audience is never going to notice them. And it's just night after night, he's banging on it, which is very impressive. I don't get anywhere near that.
What's his secret?
Well, I think he practices. I think that's the secret.
Oh, practice.
That's where I'm going wrong. Yeah.
That thing, practice, right? Yeah, absolutely. It's like we experience it all the time. Like when playing with Hugh, it's like the small little things that us on stage being hyper focused and really in the zone, the things that we would notice, like a lot of people in the audience wouldn't notice as much. And it's that focus is quite an amazing thing. It's amazing how that perspective like shifts. But and I'd love to talk about the Stranglers playing and a few more elements of that, and we've got some cool things to talk about. And so just to set the table a bit for that, so how did you get started as a drummer, Jim, and what were your early inspirations when starting out?
I don't actually remember why. I can never remember asking for a drum kit, but I got given a drum kit as a Christmas present when I was 6. My mum was a professional musician, but she'd kind of given up when I came along, basically, and my brother. So we were kind of like encouraged. My brother's really musical, far more so than me. He's really annoying people that can pick up any instrument and make a tune, whereas I can only play the drums. I can't do anything else.
Specialist.
And then I just got obsessed with it, basically. I had a few lessons when I started out. And then I just used to sit every single day. I used to play along to the radio for a couple of hours, just with whatever was coming on, which I think is quite a good way of learning, because you've got to learn to play I think it's nowadays when I occasionally practice, if I've got a tour coming up or something, I try and do the same sort of thing. I just put Spotify on randomly and play whatever comes on it. But it's not, I don't think it's quite as good because it's not random. You know, it's curated. The algorithm is giving me things that I like. Whereas just playing to a radio, half the stuff you don't even like it, but you've got to learn to play it because you can't skip it. It's going to last for 3 minutes. You might as well play along, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it was a really useful way of getting outside your comfort zone.
What kind of stuff were you playing along to? What were some of your faves that really shaped you, like drummers, tunes, and records as well? I'm not really
a drummer's drummer, to be honest with you. I'm more like I play drums and I've pursued it as a career because I like bands. I like being in bands. I like touring. I like, it's the camaraderie and the feel of playing with other people that I enjoy. I've never been one to sit and really delve deep into drums. So as a result, my musical taste is quite poppy, really. It's broad. I like it. I like most genres, but I tend to like the more poppy commercial end of each genre. As soon as anything starts to go too far, like with metal or rock or jazz or anything like that, as soon as it starts to go too deep, I'm out. I need a hook. I've got to have a bit of top line, something to whistle. Otherwise, I can't be doing with it. So, for sure. Really early on, one of my dad's friends gave me a tape of Gene Krupa, and I just absolutely loved it. So I used to play that a lot. And then, I suppose it's not embarrassing. My parents let us watch the Blues Brothers when we were really little.
Oh, amazing!
And I absolutely love that. And obviously, the band in that is meant. Now with the benefit of watching it with a bit of hindsight, you go, well, the band's absolutely insane. That's why I loved it.
Yeah, it's Steve Jordan and drums and others. Yeah. Oh, just such a great.
Have you heard there's some proper live albums of them playing clubs around the time of the film, like
Briefcase Full of Blues, I think was one, and then there was a live record, and
it's absolutely rocking. Like, what a band!
Donald Duck Dunn.
There's a comedy element to it, but you can't mess around. They are brilliant. So I got into that, which took me into kind of like Motown side of things for a little while, and then, like most sort of teenagers of my kind of age, just got into rock, started going to festivals and joined bands, and that was it basically from there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, Blues Brothers. I need to watch that again. I mean, that was one of those VHSs that I wore that one out. That
absolutely.
Such an all-time classic. Amazing. And, leading up to the Stranglers and your career, what were some key milestones in your drumming career in terms of, how did you get the gigs that you got working with the bands and the artists?
I've always just kind of been pretty lucky, to be honest. I mean, I joined a band in Birmingham in about 2003, 4, something like that, called Envy and Other Sins. And they were an established band that had moved to Birmingham from down south, because it's easier to tour from a central location. And that they went really well. Like we had a few good years of having singles come out and signed on little deals and stuff like that. And it kind of was really good. We had a lovely time, great bunch of lads. And then just towards, as it was kind of winding down in a weird way, the singer's wife entered us into this like sort of like early pop idol thing on Channel 4, but for bands. It's called Mobile Act.
Right. Okay.
And we ended up winning that. So we got signed to A&M off the back of that, which was a disaster. I mean, very interesting, eye-opening, like seeing how those programs are made and how deals are structured and all that kind of stuff. It was good. I don't regret it, but the band had about another year after that. We did some touring, made a bit of money. That was when I quit. That was when I quit a job, went professional.
Right. All in, yeah.
But then through the when that band sort of eventually went its separate ways, I just sort of met enough people on the circuit that you know someone would ring me up and say, "Do you fancy doing this?"
Yeah.
And then just sort of hop from job to job, really. And every time I've done a job, I've met somebody who's then gone on to give me another job, like a little sort of game.
Word of mouth
like
type
I don't,
thing.
you know, I don't live in London. I'm absolutely terrible at networking. Like I've got no formal education in drums or anything. I just, you know, get on with people, and they'll ring when they need a drummer, they ring you up.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, that's what I was going to ask is like, what were the key lessons that you learned along the way that really helped you sustain that work? And the first thing you were saying, you know, just getting on with people is, as we know, absolutely key.
Absolutely, the most important thing. Yeah, like you. I mean, it's not exactly a unique pearl of wisdom, but it's worth noting that if you're touring, basically, I and yourself to an extent as well. We tour for a living, don't we?
Mm.
And when you're on tour, you're only on stage for an hour and a half. The other 22 and a half hours of the day or whatever, you're just living in the pocket of the people that you're with. So it's all about not being a dickhead, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Rule number one:
around.
Don't be a dick. Well,
you know. you laugh, but then a lot of people ignore that very simple rule, don't they?
Yeah, it's simple, and it's like that whole. There's one thing like being in the pocket or in the groove on stage, but it's like sustaining that off stage as well. You know, keeping a groove that way and keeping the vibe good there too is just absolutely key. You know,
absolutely. And I think what also helped me was that, obviously, as you know, being a professional musician is not always a smooth ride, financially speaking. So in order to supplement when I wasn't touring, I started roadieing as well.
Right.
And I think that is something that is kind of a double-edged sword, because there is definitely a stigma. I know that there are jobs that I was put forward for as drummer that I didn't get because people within those organisations knew me as a roadie from other things. And there's definitely a stigma, you know, once you've been one, you can't cross over to the other. So it is something you have to be slightly wary of. But on the other side of the coin, it really teaches you a lot about the infrastructure around gigs, and I think it makes you a much better musician, because the more you appreciate the environment that you're working in and what everybody is doing there, and how your actions will impact on other people, because you know what they're there and what they're doing. You know, I think you can't know too much about the environment that you're in, can you?
Yeah,
so
awareness, absolutely.
Working on all sides of it has been really useful. You know, I've done a lot of drum teching. In fact, I'm still drum teching now. When we finished the Stranglers touring in spring, I'm going out with James for a month.
All right, cool.
Looking after Debbie Hewson. She's doing percussion on it and a bit of it, so I just look after the percussion rig and a bit of electronics. But
Cool.
you know, set carp, stage manager, drum tech, riser tech. I put barrier in. You know, everything.
Yeah.
Every job you can do on a gig, basically, I've had a crack at some point. I've even tour managed. That did not go well.
Yeah, that tour
That's
manager.
the job I'm not suited to.
Yeah, it's like you got to be like ace problem solver, logistic guy, and all of it.
Too organised. I lost all the money.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a great point. I mean, that just having that appreciation as well for the team round about you when you're on stage, because it's like we couldn't do it without those guys.
Nah.
So you know, making sure. I mean, one of the game changers as well is just making sure we take care of the crew as best as possible, because it's that thing. It's such a luxury, like playing drums, like to have someone that does the bulk of it. Like, I mean, I still do my tuning and stuff like that, but I never ever take that for granted. It's a cool, privileged position to be in. But great point as well. And so with the Stranglers, you know, how did that gig come about for you? You know, how did you find yourself in the position of what I would call the best seat in the house with such an iconic, long-running, great UK band?
I was working for a guy called Mike Marlin, who's a lovely chap. Just doing. I hadn't recorded on his album. I was just doing his live work, and he was supporting Stranglers. He did either 1 or 2 UK tours and then a European tour as a support. And in the process of doing that, I got to know Ian Bernard, Yanni, who's Jet's old drum tech. And towards the end of Jet's performance career, Yanni, who'd been his tech for 10 years, was the kind of the substitute when Jet wasn't feeling up to it, or Jet didn't used to leave the country to play shows. So anything overseas, Yanni would do it. And because I'd done lots of drum teching and lots of roadieing and whatever, I got on really well with Yanni while we were doing these tours together. And then he went to work for, he got offered to go and do Bombay Bicycle Club drum teching. So it meant that he couldn't do the 2012 summer festival run for the band in Europe. So he said to me, do you fancy covering these 6 shows? Do you fancy covering me? And I was like, yeah, man, like, cool. Didn't think it would go any further than that. But then while he was out doing that, he got offered Stevie Wonder, and unsurprisingly enough went, yeah, all right then, I'll do that.
Indeed. Wow.
So he never ended up coming back. And it was just like, it was never sort of discussed really. I never auditioned. I'm sure it didn't happen like this, but in my memory, I can't really recall having a conversation with the band before we did the first rehearsal.
Right.
Like, it was just like, you know, we need a drummer. There's one. He'll do. Come here, mate. Like, wow. It was
just like that.
It was just literally, I happened to be in the room when it happened, and just the closest bloke. It was complete luck. But I mean, I think on top of that, because I've been on the road around the Stranglers production team and knew them all reasonably well, I think they kind of put a word in that, you know, he's an all right chap. You'll get on with him, kind of thing. So yeah, and then I started off with them. Absolutely balls the first gig up completely.
What happened?
Like, I don't know if you do the same thing. I mean, I have never on my set list now. Even now, 10 years into playing with the band, and I've played all these songs thousands of times, I still write in front of the track how the track starts. So, you know, if it starts with 4 clicks in from me, or guitar or bass or whatever, because on this first gig I played for them in Estonia, massive festival, like 20,000 people or something, and we got about 3/4 of the way through the set. We came to play Duchess, which is one of my favourite songs that the band play. And as you know, starts da, 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 da. So it's a fill start. I looked at the set list, I saw Duchess, could not for the life of me remember how that song went. Like absolutely nothing.
Wow.
But I thought, okay, don't panic. You've got this. Just click it in. No, it's JJ counts it in. Just start. And the second you hear it, it will come flooding back to you. Yeah. So I just started with a, 2/4 beat, thinking, give me like literally 2 seconds and I'll be able to blag this. But it starts with a fucking fill, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
wow.
We started. Yeah. So we started the song like 4, maybe 5 times. And then with JJ just starting it and then stopping it and starting it and stopping it and like swearing at me and calling me all names under the sun. And eventually it came to me. I was like, oh God, yes. Okay. And then we started it, played it. And like finished the gig, walked off the stage and thought, well, never going to see these people again. But that was quite fun. I'm in Estonia. That's a good laugh.
Happy days.
Honestly, just thought I'd be sacked on the spot. Like, but they never even mentioned it ever again.
Right.
Well, so I think everybody just forgot it happened.
Yeah, human error, but 100%. I still do that all the time as well. It's like all these notes. I'm always making notes on the set list on my iPad, just because sometimes it's like there's so many changes that happen. Like working with Hugh, for example, it's like we play a lot of the same material and we've played it for years, but we're always making these little tweaks. And on the surface, it sounds very simple, but it's so specific. And and it's like, I mean, JJ's probably like this as well. It's like, Hugh hears everything and he notices things and he's very specific about what he wants. So certain songs, it's like there's 2 clicks instead of 4. And if I was to do 4 clicks, that would throw everyone. So it's just being really aware of what's there. But yeah, again, it's amazing as well how, muscle memory can just take care of so much of that too. But,
yeah, totally. I mean, I think I don't regard myself as being a particularly skilled drummer, but the one thing that I think I've got a bit of a natural like affinity for is remembering that kind of stuff. Like I've always been quite strict about not over noting things because I think it just becomes a crutch for me anyway. And if I start trying to read, then I'm not concentrating on what I'm doing. But I'm quite good for, if we rehearse something and we go, okay, well, let's cut, 2 bars there and get like, I'm quite good at remembering that that's got to happen. And, touch wood, it doesn't, not too often do I sort of forget an arrangement change and stuff like that. But I think that's just because I don't read. So I think that's just the way I've always had to learn everything. Like I learn by listening. If I've got to learn a set or a song for an audition or something, the only way I can do it is by putting it in my headphones and absolutely living with it in my head for a week. And that's the only way I'll learn it. I can't learn it on the drum kit because I can't play and listen at the same time. If I want to listen in detail, I've got to go away and do that and then take it to the drums after I've learned it, this sort of thing. I mean, I don't know, how do you go about learning things like that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, similarly, I'll sometimes I do, go in on a certain thing and transcribe it. Like if I want to make sure that I'm playing a song note for note, if that's the intention. So doing a transcription and taking it apart and then putting it back together. But it is that thing. It's like I would not be reading it. It's got to be inside and internalized. And so one way that I go about the practicing is if it is something like that I've got a specific bit to play, I will usually write it out and then practice it until I don't need to think about it, which is just repetition. And, a huge part of that is the away from the kit bit as well. Because I've found just the process of writing something out, it makes you just go in on every little detail. So a lot of the time, by the time I've charted out something or transcribed it, a lot of it's in there. And then it's just doing the repetition just to get it into muscle memory. And one of the things I was curious about yourself is like, you know, when you learn all those little details, is that like just going through it in your head without playing it, or is it going through it in your head whilst you're listening to it? If you know what I mean.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. I don't. For number one, I think it makes this process quite a lot easier when you're working with a band where you know the songs. Like, I think this is a lot harder if you're approaching trying to learn an artist's material that you're not familiar with. You know, that it's either a new band or a lesser known or whatever. So I think it makes it. You just know these songs. They're in your sort of consciousness. I don't particularly try and play the prescribed parts. I'm more focused on, and this is with the encouragement of the band sort of thing. I kind of just try and get the vibe, and if there's important fills that line up with other things that are happening, or you know, they're clearly part of a motif that's important for the song, then you got to focus on and nail that. But other than that, it's more about this song should feel like this kind of thing. And absolutely. Just sort of, and then it just finds its way after a little while. They're not, I don't know what cue's like, but my boys are not big on rehearsing. They're not going to sit. They're not going to sit and play something loads and loads and loads of times. So just kind of get the vibe, and then we'll work it out as we go along.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to use the word lazy, but basically lazy.
Oh, yeah, and like some bands are really like that. Like I did a show with a few shows last year with Wishbone Ash, and they don't rehearse at all. It was funny. It's like when I got the like asked to do it, you know, learned the whole set, like because it was a lot of specific bits. So it was about 2 or 3 weeks of, you know, I did write things out, but then just practicing to get to the point that it wasn't just like like reading a script every night. It was like just like I was free with it, and the feel was there, and you know, always just making it feel as good as possible. That was the key. But yeah, they don't rehearse. And when we went to the one rehearsal that we had, which it was the first show that the band had done after the whole lockdown thing, like 18 months or so. So a rehearsal made sense then, but the guitar player said, he goes, goodness, it's like, this is the second time I've rehearsed with a band. Mark, he said, the last time I rehearsed with this band was about 5 years ago in this same room when he first came on board. So, wow, it was funny. But yeah, you know, I mean, the thing with Hugh, you know, Hugh rehearses enough to just make sure that everything is as he wants it to sound. You know, just basically, I think it's just to take away any doubt that we can't do it. You know, so it's just rehearsing enough to know that, okay, we've got this. It's that thing. It's like, I mean, I find this with like confidence. I find that if I can practice something and see myself doing it, like I like to practice a lot of the time with a click, and to the point that I can just play the drums but hear all the other parts in my head at the same time. And if I can do that, then that is me proving to me that I know how to play it. And that it's like, it really helps with that confidence, you know, just seeing that you can do it then and relax. But yeah, it can take quite a while sometimes. It's just that repetition. It's just doing it enough to get to the level that you know that, yeah, we got this. And then, you know, things naturally develop, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly the same. I think it's all repetition. I'm not an improviser. Once I've worked out what I think is the best part to play for a particular song, I'll play exactly the same. All the fills exactly the same every single night. And then the game for me is, you know, the personal challenge becomes how perfect can you get it? Like, you know, you're playing exactly the same thing every day. So how good can you do it? I have a huge amount of respect for people that go and make it up as you go along. I could not do that. I'm not good enough, and I wouldn't be able to. I would be overthinking. I wouldn't be able to perform because I'd be thinking too much. But ideally, for me, I'm not thinking about it at all. But my arms are just kind of doing it, and I'm concentrating on the rest of the band. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
So
that's huge.
How people improvise each night, I have no idea how they do that.
That's
next level.
It does take a lot of thinking. I mean, just what you described there about playing and just being able to hear everyone else and like yourself without having to think about it at all and just really listen as if you were like a third person observer, so to speak, is a wonderful thing that I find really helps the enjoyment of the process. Like you can hear the music flowing through you, which is very cool. And then when it comes to improvise, you know, I mean, in the recent set I did with Hugh, the first set, you know, with Hugh Cornwell, he does the first set all solo material and the second set Stranglers material. There's like 2 drum solos in the first set. Well, like there's a kind of Who like drum break in one of his tunes, Stuck in Daily Mail Land, and then there's another tune called Under Her Spell it was a record Beyond Elysian Fields we made in New Orleans a while ago, and there's this big drum solo at the end of it that kind of builds the piece to a climax. It's like there's a bit of variation there, but it does take like a lot of thinking, and I don't want to be in my conceptual mind when I'm playing. I want to be listening. So the way I've kind of navigated that is, you know, just finding certain motifs that work, like a certain type of phrasing idea. Like I'll start off with single strokes, and then I might do a bit of the cobham rudiment, and then triplets. So I'm still thinking about it a bit, but not excessively. So ideally, that's what I've learned. One of the biggest game changers is just getting out of here when playing and just always listening, you know?
Well, it's funny. It's like, I think most drummers have that kind of their own personal little phrase book, don't they? You'll have experienced this as well. If you're trying to learn a set of a specific drummer, once you have spent enough time trying to get into the head of how he's playing or she's playing, you can see it actually. Then you can see, he's doing his little thing. He's, you know, any given musician has probably got somewhere between 5 and 15 little licks that they throw in, and you see them all over the catalogue. When you hear them, you're like, he's doing that thing. Like Jet has got loads, and when you know the material as well as you and I know it, you hear them all the time, don't you? He's like, there's that little bass drum triplet that he does all the time. Like,
absolutely.
And they just keep recurring all the way through.
Yeah, and the kind of the 4-stroke things in the hands and stuff, and yeah, really cool. And yeah, Jet Black, wow. So indeed, man. You know, absolutely. At the time of this, a few days ago, you know, the Jet passed. You know, bless. And you know, I'd been on tour with Hugh at the time. We finished up on December 7th, and it wasn't until the day after that I'd heard that Jet had passed a few days earlier, and it was actually through your post that you made that I first learned the news. So I thought, wow, I was really grateful for the way you phrased that and sharing your admiration, and that led to me getting in contact with yourself and having this chat too. And you know, what an amazing drummer, right? You know, I saw on the site that, you know, musically, you know, he helped the band achieve like 23 top 40 singles, 19 top 40 albums, which is pretty amazing. But beyond that,
not bad going, is it?
Yeah, it's not bad, not too shabby, you know. And beyond that, the thing that really resonates deeply at this time as well is that, you know, what a super inspiring human he was in the band and continues to be, you know, and I know he's inspired us both in our work. And what was your experience with Jet like? What was he like as a guy?
He was, I mean, to be honest with you, I never, because of the nature of what I was there doing, I didn't get to spend a huge amount of time with him, because kind of by default, if I was there, it normally meant he wasn't.
Right.
You know, but I was lucky enough to, I did 2 tours where Jet was playing. I think one he did about half the set, and one he did a couple of 3 songs, I think. So you wouldn't see a lot of him. He'd be very much in and out because he was struggling with his health at that point. But you'd occasionally get to say hello and say a few words to him or whatever. And he was always very supportive. Like I can't remember why, but we were both at the same rehearsal one day. And I asked him, he gave me a little run through of how to play Genetics, which was invaluable because I wouldn't have worked it out without that.
Great one.
He was just a lovely bloke. I mean, most of my Jet experience has come vicariously through the other three, telling me stories of being out with him and being on tour with him and living with him and stuff. And most of the stories are not for public consumption, but
indeed
they are hilarious.
Yeah.
And he seems like the kind of bloke that if I had got to know him, I would have liked him a lot. But he's a lot more. I think his role within the band can't be understated, because I think it's, as much as they were four exceptional musicians, they were also four very, very unique personalities. And I think they owe their success as much to that as their musical ability, almost, because they were inventing punk through the force of their own personalities. And there's there's no way on earth you would ever get a band like that be successful now, because they just would. They couldn't exist in the modern musical landscape, could they? I mean, just wouldn't happen.
So diverse, and I can't think of many bands like that have got such a unique sound and the personality. I've never met the guys in the band apart from Hugh. It's like you could feel that personality coming through just in the music. That's like, whoa! It's like a
total oddballs. A lot of them
amazing, like off not your average band, but pretty special. And so with Jet, you mentioned he showed you how to play genetics, and which leads us on to like some of his great drumming performances, because there's been so many. And I think we were going to do a top 5 of that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we've got the same. Have you done one as well?
I've done a top 5.
Okay, good. I wonder if there's any crossover.
Yeah. What should we do? Should we do one each, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, let's do one each and see how we get on. You go first.
Right. So in ascending order, or like from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, yeah.
In at number 5 here, drum roll please. Nice and Sleazy from Black and White.
Same as me. Yeah.
Oh wow. Why number 5, or why do you love it so much?
I just think it's it's great fun to play live. And as a it's such a weird thing to say, but it's such a confident beat. And it's got such a sort of swagger over this quite mean, dirty song. And the beat just kind of, it pins the whole thing down. It does its own thing. And it's played with such a sort of slinkiness that's what makes it quite hard to play it right, is you've got to put that attitude into it. Otherwise it doesn't, if you play it too straight, it doesn't work, does it? It's got to be played with a bit of drag and a bit of meanness to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like just finding that emotion, that kind of sleazy feeling, imagine what you want to get that sitting right. That inner game that we bring to it when we play can really emphasize those qualities, that can be felt through it, and Sleazy's great for that. And I mean, great drum intro. It's one of those iconic ones that it's like, it's a hook of the song straight away. Boom, boom, catch. And the drum sound, I love the snare drum sound particularly. It's such a great vintage tone there that every time I hear it, it's like, I got a smile on my face.
Yeah, I don't know what he used. Do you know what? Funnily enough, I don't know what he used on any of the recordings. And annoyingly, they're so like disinterested in that kind of techie side that no one seems to know really. No, right. Well, not in the organisation at the moment. Like nobody can remember anything. It was very frustrating. Yeah, how did you do this? No idea. Can't remember doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just such a great, I think, like getting that vintage tone. What it sounds like is he's doing a lot of hitting the center of the drum, like not rim shotting, and it's quite a fat sound that way, which gives it that tone, which it doesn't always translate live when I don't do that. I rim shot it and hit quite solid, but I think, the touch that he brought to it was really iconic in that as well, for sure.
Yeah.
So that was number 5, nice and sleazy. So yours was sleazy too. So number 4 is my turn then. So Peasant in the Big Shitty.
Oh, I haven't got that one on the list.
Right.
That's interesting.
That
is good. I'd forgotten about that. We haven't played that for ages. That would probably be in there if I could revisit my list. That would be that's a good one.
No worries. Yeah, just again, it's the same kind of thing that beat like starts, and it's such a hooky riff that it's once it's established, it stays there, and it just really helps set the tone and foundation for the main riff when the guitars and the keys come in. And again, just a great example of being savage with the simple is the term that came to mind.
Yeah,
for that one.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah,
I dig that. So, what's your number 4?
Number 4 for me, I'm actually just going to change because I've just remembered one that I'd missed off the list.
Right.
So I'm going to go for The Man They Love to Hate.
Interesting. Yes. La Folie.
Great song. I love that song. Not often played live by our incarnation anyway. We've done it on a couple of tours. And I just think it's them at their... I like listening to them when they were sort of starting to stretch their legs in the studio and starting to mess around and realize the potential of the recording studio.
Yeah.
And I think I think it's just like you say, a good example. You could argue that later on they perhaps went a little bit too far in the drum programming side of things. But I think in the sort of earlier stuff, when it was more of a meeting of that kind of rawness, alongside the programming, I think it really works well there.
Absolutely, and I think they've really explored that in various ways, like to a great extent, and there's a lot of nuance in each of the kind of light and shade of it. And the Men They Love to Hate, that was in is in my honourable mentions list. I mean, it reminded me of the influence of Devo, because I know that Hugh, he was
totally.
big Devo fan, and again, it was just that great consistency and simple playing throughout. And that's again one of the things I really appreciate about Jet is there are many drummers that are in social media, super chops, check out all these licks and things like that. But it's less popularized about just how to play a song really well, which is what the key is. And I think for me, Jet really is such a great example of acing that. And I still listen so much. It's like, listen to Jet, it's like, okay, Windsor, play less. Keep it simple.
Totally.
There's that.
I mean, there's so many songs where that you'll be familiar with as well, where there's just no fills in them at all.
Yeah.
The fills are opener hi-hat.
Yeah.
That's it. And they're great because of that. Like, you didn't need it, so you didn't do it.
Absolutely.
We can all learn a lot from that.
Oh, yeah. Less is more. Like Throwing Away is one, which is not in my top 5, but that comes to mind. It's just so on the record. It's so simple. And then, such a hook. Oh, I love it, man. So you've done your 4. So 3. Okay. My third one is from The Raven, and we've already mentioned it. Genetics.
That's in for me as well, but later on.
All right, cool. And again, just what I love about that part, it's like you can sing it, and it's like a hook of the song. It's just such a musical part that
totally,
so memorable. I love it. And then
and very difficult to play. To play like to play it and make it sound like he makes it sound is very difficult, I think.
Right,
and I
right.
think I was grateful to him to show me how to do it, because I think where I would have got it wrong is that, you know, the first part of the phrase, I would have played that as 3 notes, but it's actually 4. But it's played so quickly that he's basically sliding 2 notes into 1. And that's what, for ages, trying to teach myself and thinking, why doesn't this sound quite? It's not quite right, but I can't work out why. It was because I was basically missing a note out. Where I was playing 3, he's playing 4. But if you play it so slowly that you can hear 4, it doesn't sound right. You've basically got to jam 4 notes into 3, and then it works. Then that's it. That's how it sounds.
Yeah, and that it was like last night I was thinking, because I've always thought, what a cool tune. I've never played that tune, but I was like, so how's he doing this? And it's like that intro. It sounds pretty quick. So is it, for geeky question, is it 3 on the hands before the first bass drum note?
Yeah, 3 on the hands before the first kick. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what I thought as well. Very cool. Amazing.
And then there's the other thing, the weird thing, and again, it's took me, like, I'm not saying I completely nailed it, but we did play it on a tour, and he got it sounding good, but I couldn't get it to sound like he gets it to sound, because I just sort of hit harder than he does, and there's not a lot I can do about that, really. There's a snare in the last rep of it. It says the penultimate beat of that last lick is a snare, but it doesn't sound like a snare, but it definitely is. So when I'm playing it, you can tell it's a snare because you can hear it, because I'm playing it slightly harder than Jet does. I found it extremely difficult to change my dynamic to make that not sound like a backbeat in the middle of that part of the lick.
Right.
Because it's just got to just glance it and take it up and away onto the hi-hat. And he does that because he just sort of, jazzes around the kit. I'd stomp around the kit like a Neanderthal, and it's much harder for me to just go, oh. So for ages, JJ was going, you're not playing that right, you're not playing that right. I had to get Jet to video. Well, I videoed Jet playing it. I went, I am. That's exactly what Jet does. It just doesn't sound like that when I do it.
Wow. I mean, just that classic example is, it's like you could give 2 drummers the same beat to play, or 10 drummers the same beat to play, and guarantee that it's going to sound 10 different ways, because that uniqueness, that personality, that touch just comes through. And very cool story there, man. And
well, I've got,
so
my
you're
number
number 3
is